Hi guys, welcome to another video and welcome back to Northumberland. Now, as I said in last week's video, I've met up with David Taylor today. Say hello, David. Hi. There. Yeah, met up with David. We're having a bit of a recce for a workshop we're running, which basically is a good excuse to come out and play. But as you can see, the light is not ideal for landscape photography at all. It's a little bit hazy. You know, I can cope with blue sky days. I don't really have too much of an issue with blue sky days, but I do have a bit of an issue when it's sort of hazy like this and there's no clouds. There's basically, it's just not very interesting for photography. However, all is not lost. There's always intimate landscapes, and to be honest, I enjoy them just as much as the big vistas. So don't think that you always have to photograph the big scene to get something from a location. And I've got a feeling we're going to enjoy ourselves here today. But hopefully we're both going to share a handful of tips which could make your own intimate landscape photography a little bit easier. Now, my first tip would be to use a telephoto lens, because basically it means you can work a little bit higher and compress perspective down. Now, if you remember from last week, I've actually got the 28 to 200mm lens fitted on, the Panasonic Lumix, which is supposedly a macro lens, but I think it's only decent macro at the 28mm side of things, which would mean I'll be basically right on top of my subject, and I want to work a little bit further away. Now, what I've also done is I've actually switched to a square crop, because as you know, I love my square crops, this sort of photography. I think David's not as keen. I think this is my thing. But it's good, we're all different. Right, so this is a really simple shot, and what I've done is I've used a 200mm lens to basically zoom in on the little limpets on the floor. I'm sort of shooting straight down, almost like like if you did a lay flat sort of abstract. I'm just straight down, really simple. It couldn't get much easier. I've gone for a square crop. I'm shooting at f14, which what you have to remember when you sort of getting closer to a subject is that your depth of field sort of reduces down. So f14 actually, it may be overkill, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. I've got the shutter delay on, and here's the shot.
As Jason's already mentioned, it's a very bright, hard light sort of day, which isn't always ideal for the intimate landscape. I found this little clump of barnacles and limpets, which I quite like. There's a nice triangular shape formed by the limpets here, but there's a lot of contrast, quite hard shadows behind the limpets where the sun's casting a shadow, and lots of bright highlights on the white of the limpets. So I've taken a shot, but I think it's not really working that well, just purely because of the contrast. So what I need to do is control contrast, and there are two ways I can do that. I have my trusty reflector, we've seen a lot of action over the years. It's got all rusty. What I can do is I can actually use it to bounce light back into the picture. So I'm softening those shadows, I'm adding light into the shadows, and that reduces contrast. And I'm still getting some nice sort of highlights on the shells. So that's one option, and I'll just take that shot. The other option is to cast a shadow. And again, I can use the reflector, or I can use my coat. If it wasn't so chilly, I'd take that off. And again, that softens the light, because I'm cutting out all the daylight, essentially all the direct light from the sun. And that's really softened the scene. The one problem with that is you've got to be careful with your white balance, because I'm casting a shadow, the shadow's going to be very blue. So I need to either be in automatic white balance or setting it to shade. In this case, I'm just going to leave it on automatic white balance and see what that looks like. So again, I'll just take that shot. And again, that's very effectively killed the contrast. So it's a nice soft light. I'm not getting any specular highlights on the limpets, but I am getting that lovely sort of a soft light, which is ideal for this kind of subject. So it's either use a reflector to bounce light back into the shadows, or to cast a shadow onto your subject.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I'm struggling a little bit here. If I swing you round, see, David seems quite happy. He knows exactly what he wants to photograph, but I think I'm struggling to simplify this chaos, and I'm going to show you what I mean. We've got all this seaweed on the floor, for example. Now, I think the seaweed is actually quite interesting. However, it's very chaotic. And then we've got all these nice, lovely, colourful boulders over here. Again, you know, I'm pretty sure there has to be a subject there, but it's a case of finding it. And I think that's the whole thing of intimate landscape photography. It's not like photographing a big grand vista. If you photograph a big grand vista, it's pretty obvious what you're photographing. You know, if I came here, for example, and the light was right, I would be photographing this pavement going out with the building in the distance, lighthouse maybe right in the distance as well. You know, just a classic landscape shot. But because I'm having to look for small details at my feet, it's making it a lot more tricky. And I think that ultimately this is going to be my next tip for this video. And that is to spend the time looking for simple compositions. Think your subject has to be interesting but simple. You know, it's got to have enough there to keep the viewer's eyes engaged, but not so much that it's just chaotic and there's nothing obvious for them to look at. So yeah, my next tip is keep your composition simple, and I'm going to keep that in mind while I carry on hunting, and I'm going to pass you back to David.
So another compositional technique is to look for repetition, which is where you get repeating patterns through a shot, and that can be very effective as a way of creating an abstract image. But in this instance, I found a little shell which is nestled in some seaweed here, and I like that because it's breaking up the pattern. You've got the repeating leads of the seaweed, and then this wonderful golden shell just sort of poking out from the mass of seaweed. So I'm going to use my reflector again, just to lower the contrast, and then I'll take the shot. And then I'll take the shell out and I'll take the same shot again, and you can see what the difference is and see which one you prefer. Personally, I think I'm going to prefer the one with the shell in, just because it breaks that pattern. But it's very subjective, this sort of thing, so there's no right or wrong answer. Just put that over there. Yes, and I'm sure Jason will put the two images on the screen and just think which one you like better. Perhaps even put it in the comments which one works best.
This has not been an easy shot to find, but what I found, and I really like it, so I'm actually really pleased with what I found. I've basically found a rock which it's almost got like hexagonal patterns on it, almost sort of looks like Giant's Causeway in miniature. So I'm going to guess, not being a geologist, but I'm going to guess it's some sort of volcanic rock. May not be, but anyway, it's nice and dark, virtually black, and it's got a little bit of sand on it, which is gorgeous. Now the only problem is it's a little bit wet, so it is reflecting the sun above me. So what I need to do is I need to try and cut through the reflections, and to do that you just fit the humble polarizing filter. Now, you know, I've said this many times, that polarizing filter is an incredible tool to have in your camera bag. And what's quite nice is that some of it's totally wet and you can't cut through to enough really to get things uniform, but there's brighter patches. I don't know, it just looks really interesting. It's just sort of exaggerating the patterns in the rock. But yeah, I think the final tip for today would be always carry a polarizing filter. And if you're doing intimate landscape photography, I would say pretty much always leave it on. Right guys, that's it. I think we're about done. I hope you've got something from this video. 5 simple tips really, just to sort of improve your intimate landscape photography. I found it quite challenging today. I think David's been coping a lot easier with it. You think?
Yeah, enjoyed that.
But yeah, I have found aspects challenging. I like, sometimes I like big vistas.
Yeah.
I think here in my mind I've been thinking big vistas, but you know, it's a good spot for intimate. So
Oh, definitely, it's very. Obviously, the light hasn't helped either. It's been very hard light. That's been quite a challenge.
yeah, but I think we've produced some nice shots.
It's been good fun. Yeah, good.
Right, so me and David are back here in a couple of months. Is it June?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, running a workshop. That and many others, which obviously are on the website if you fancy joining us. I'll leave a link in the description, and the QR code will pop up now for you to follow if you want to have a look. And on that note, shall we say goodbye?
Definitely.
Right, guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you next week for another one. Thanks again.